There are several ways to say that something's boring or that you feel bored, and I'm going to cover all of the most important ones today. But first, I wanted to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters and my channel members. It's all of you who are helping to support my channel that allow me to make educational content like this, as well as all my other videos on this channel. Really, you are the reason that I can keep going. And if you're watching and you're also interested in supporting my content, please check out the description box below where I'll put some links for how you can do that. So, two of the most common ways that you probably heard for saying to be bored or something's boring are 지루하다 and 심심하다. But there are actually several others, including one that's even more commonly used. So we're going to be going over these one at a time. First, let's look at 심심하다. This is the most common way to say that you feel bored, specifically because there's nothing to do. So you could say something like this. 심심해요. I'm bored. There's nothing to do. But this word also has a couple other common uses. For example, you can say that your mouth is bored. 입이 심심해요. Literally, my mouth is bored. There's nothing to eat. This means that you want something small to eat. Maybe you want a snack or something like that. But it can also be used to describe food. You can say that the food you're eating is 심심해요, in which case the food makes you feel bored. So this would be for food that's slightly bland. Note, I'm saying slightly bland, not completely bland. There are other words you can use to describe food that's actually bland. This one's more like, it's missing something. That sort of feeling. It's a little bit bland. I wish I had a little more of something. For example, if you wanted to talk about the soup, 국이 심심해요. The soup is a little bit bland. So again, when you feel bored, because there's nothing to do, use 심심하다. Or if you want to say your mouth is a little bored, you want something to eat, you can use this. Or if the food makes you feel a little bit bored, then this is the one you're going to use. This next one has a different meaning for boring. 지루하다. This is how you say that something is boring, either because it takes a long time, like perhaps it's really tedious, or it's just uninteresting to you. For example, if you were to say 지루해요, it would mean like, this is boring, as in, I'm bored now because something is tedious. Something's taking a long time. So you might say it, for example, about your job. Maybe your job is really uninteresting, or your homework, or that one Hulk movie from 2003. It's actually the only movie I've ever fallen asleep during in the movie theater. Again, 심심하다 would be when you have nothing to do, and 지루하다 is when something's taking a long time or it's just uninteresting. So if you're doing your work and you feel a bit bored, well, you're probably feeling 지루하다. Or if you're listening to someone talk and it's making you bored because they're talking about something uninteresting, that would also be 지루하다. But if you're sitting around the house and you feel bored because there's nothing to do, that would be 심심하다. Okay, but there's one more that's actually really common, and you might not have even known that it means this. 재미가 없다. This one is in some ways more useful. You might already know this one too. 재미 means fun or amusement. So literally there is no amusement. It's not fun. And this is probably the most common way that Korean speakers will say that something's boring in regular conversation. Because although in Korean the meaning is quite different, when you translate it into English, this word can mean boring in a lot of situations. For example, you got out of a movie theater and you saw a really boring movie. You just saw a 재미없는 영화. So an unentertaining movie, a movie that was not good, a bad movie, or a boring movie. Now, you could have also said 지루한 영화, using 지루하다 to mean a movie that just drags on and it's not interesting, but actually 재미가 없다 would be more commonly used. So again, 재미가 없다 can also be used to mean that something is boring, because literally it means it's not entertaining. A couple notes, although it's 재미, you might also see this shortened in slang to 잼. Or you can also see the slang word 노잼, which is the English word no, combined with 잼 from this, literally meaning the same thing as 재미없다. But I don't recommend using these words to strangers because they sound quite slangy. But to your close friends, they're probably okay. Now let's go on to a couple other words which are words you should know but are less common than those. First is 지겹다. Now, 지겹다 doesn't really mean to be bored, although I've seen it translated that way sometimes. This one really just means to be sick of something, as in you're so bored of something that you want to avoid it. Now, I would not use this word 지겹다 in most situations. Instead, use one of the other three options, because 지겹다 sounds pretty strong. For example, if they play the same music CD on loop over and over again at your workplace, after the fourth or fifth time, it's going to be a bit 지겹다. Or maybe there's a song you just are totally sick of. Something like that could be a 지겨운 노래. And while you could translate this as a boring song, it has a stronger feel of dislike for something. And there are a lot of other words you can also use to express that you're sick of or tired of something. Maybe I can do a different video in the future if there's enough requests for that. And finally, a lesser used word. 따분하다 has a few meanings, but we'll focus on just one for this video. This means that something is boring and tedious. In fact, a bit frustrating because it's so boring. So this one is similar to using 지루하다, but it's much stronger. And because it's much stronger, it actually is less common. For example, someone's telling you a story and it's just going on and on forever and it's really uninteresting, then you could say that's 따분하다. Maybe you can think of this one as like annoyingly boring. But like 지겹다, I wouldn't recommend using this often. So are there any other words you know for boring that I missed? Let me know in the comments below. Extra thanks goes out again to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. You know who you are, you wonderful people who help keep the lights on here and allow me to keep making content for you for free on this channel. If you're also interested in becoming a supporter of my content, check out the description box below where there are some links for how you can do that. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐!